What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And this evening, I wanted to do a way too early 2025 Kansas City Chiefs NFL mock draft. And the reason I wanted to do this now is because we do have a little bit of downtime as the Kansas City Chiefs await their opponent for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I wanted to do some off-topic stuff, including the NFL draft. Take this opportunity to look ahead into the offseason, take a look at the draft. I mean, we are approaching that time. The college season is about to wrap up. Guys are starting to declare. And I'm going to give you guys a glimpse into the NFL draft, who some of my favorite prospects are, talk about the Kansas City Chiefs needs just a little bit. Just have some fun talking offseason, upcoming Kansas City Chiefs NFL draft. I will say, though, for this mock draft, we're only going to do 4 rounds for this mock draft. And the reason for that, one, is because my research does not go that deep yet in this class. I'm working on it, and I'm working on a list of guys to review this offseason for you guys. But right now, that's kind of where my knowledge is the best, is that first 4 rounds full of prospects. So that's why we're doing the 4-round mock draft. And it's just going to be an opportunity for me to kind of spotlight some of my favorite prospects in this draft and guys that I think would be a good fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's have some fun. Let's dive into a way too early 2025 NFL mock draft for your Kansas City Chiefs. All right, guys, so here we go. We're going to be using the ProFootballNetwork.com mock draft simulator. Shout out to them. Obviously, the Chiefs are our team. Going to do 4 rounds, and we're going to set the speed to fast, so it's going to run through the other team's picks relatively quickly. If a guy that I like gets taken, they get taken. We're just going to be focusing on who is available. Then, of course, I'm going to talk about some of our biggest needs. So I'm also not going to do any trades either. I'm going to reject all these. But guys, the team needs that they list on Pro Football Network for the Kansas City Chiefs are defensive tackle, guard, wide receiver, safety, and tight end. I would definitely say that tight end, you could probably switch that out for cornerback. Safety is a need, a true cover safety. I would say the Chiefs need a free safety for sure. Wide receiver, I think you need to keep adding there, especially depending on what they do with DeAndre Hopkins and or Hollywood Brown. Both of them are not under contract for next year, so we'll see what happens with them. But I think either way, you should be adding yet another weapon to this offense. I also think running back needs to be up there. The Kansas City Chiefs need to add an explosive running back to this rotation of guys, because while Kareem Hunt has done an admirable job this year, he's definitely lost a lot of juice. Isaiah Pacheco, I have always kind of felt now for a while that he was a running back 2 at best. Offensive guard is an interesting one. I guess that's assuming they don't re-sign Trey Smith. I don't want to get into the Trey Smith conversation right now, but I will say, the Kansas City Chiefs did spend multiple draft picks just last year on interior offensive linemen, and you also have Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamataia. Those guys, someone's going to end up not being a tackle, so you can end up moving one of them to guard. And I think they're both capable of playing guard. They even played Kingsley Suamataia at guard in the game against the Denver Broncos to end the season. So, I wouldn't say guard is the biggest need. Defensive tackle, definitely a need. I would like to see them get a pass-rushing defensive tackle to add next to Chris Jones. Especially as he ages throughout that contract. That was one big concern that a lot of people had when the Chiefs paid Chris Jones or were in negotiations with Chris Jones is, hey, what if he's not good towards the end of that contract? Well, you want to get him some help so he's not playing so many snaps towards the end of his career, the end of his contract. We kind of just went through this with Travis Kelce, where the Chiefs' offense, whether it was because of injuries or because they didn't effectively address the position or adding enough talent at wide receiver, a lot of the responsibility the last couple years has been on the shoulders of Travis Kelce, and it's been unfair to him, and I don't think that's the best way to prolong his career. So that's just kind of a general snapshot on the Kansas City Chiefs needs. But I'm going to stop babbling and kind of get into this draft. So right at the top of the board, you see Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. I'm a huge fan of him. When he entered the transfer portal from Texas A&M, he was instantly, last year, one of the top guys in the transfer portal. I was really hoping my Missouri Tigers could maybe make a run at him, but ends up at Ole Miss. As you can see, 6'4", 290. He's not the biggest guy for a defensive tackle. He almost kind of looks like an edge, but man, he is just super strong. You can see the list of strengths for him. Heavy, compact frame with great lean mass and elite proportional length. High-end explosiveness. I agree with everything there. Weaknesses, they say slightly high-hipped frame can invite motor hip stiffness on direction changes, which, hey, if Steve Spagnuolo is going to remain this team's defensive coordinator, I don't think he's going to really mind that too much. He does not care about a little bit of stiffness in his defensive lineman. And as far as a defensive tackle like Walter Nolan, it's not really a deal breaker. He's a guy that's going to use his explosiveness and his frame to beat you. He kind of seems like the obvious one here for me. Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green, super productive this year. If you wanted to take a high upside tight end to eventually replace Travis Kelce, that would be a guy worth looking into. Also, I don't know if he went off the border yet. Sorry, Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. He's a beast. I've done this a couple times now, and I've been able to grab him in the first round, but in this one, he went 25th overall to the Chargers. Based on the guys that are available here, I think the obvious pick is Walter Nolan, so I'm going to end up going with him. And he's really going to help out this defensive line, lining up next to Chris Jones. Get a young guy in there with some juice. That'll help out the pass rush. Okay, next pick, 64. You see some of the guys up there. Wide receiver, this would be a good place to take one. The Kansas City Chiefs have kind of used the second round as that wide receiver sweet spot the past few years. Obviously, they traded up for Xavier Worthy in the first round this past draft, but the previous 2 years before that, they took Rashee Rice and Sky Moore in the second round. There are some guys that I really like in the second round here. I still think wide receiver is a need. Some people may not see wide receiver as that big of a need here, but even you look at the board right here, it's a bunch of wide receivers available. And because of that, I think this would be a good place to take one. And, Brett Veach has always said from the day he took the job, I want to surround Patrick Mahomes with as many weapons as possible. The last couple of years, now injuries were more so to blame this year than Brett Veach, but the last couple years, Brett Veach has not quite really fulfilled that promise of surrounding Patrick Mahomes with weapons constantly. But here's an opportunity to do that and bring in cheap labor. People may think, Isaiah Bond, obvious pick, or some of the bigger names in this draft, Tez Johnson, Kyron Lacy, although he seems to be in some legal trouble. I'm not sure he's going to get drafted given his situation. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up. But, yeah, he's got stuff going on right now. But a guy that I really like, he's under the radar. A lot of people don't know about him, but I've watched him play before, and this guy is a dog. Jalen Royals, the wide receiver from Utah State. He's a big wide receiver, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs need a bigger wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is kind of their bigger guy. Juju Smith-Schuster is kind of their bigger guy. Juju Smith-Schuster, one-year deal. DeAndre Hopkins on the older side, not under contract. Xavier Worthy is a little bit smaller, so I would kind of like to offset that with a guy like Jalen Royals, 6 feet, 205 pounds, one of the most talented receivers in college football. Great hands. If you watch some of his tape, some of his highlights, just constantly is making circus catches. He's got good speed, good athleticism. This is a guy that easily could have transferred up last year, but didn't, remained at Utah State. And I applaud him for that. Ashton Genty's a hot topic in this draft, or he's a hot commodity. Jalen Royals is almost kind of like the Ashton Genty of wide receivers in this draft, a guy that easily could have transferred up but remained at his smaller school, put up big numbers, had a great year. I like him a lot, and I think this would be a fantastic pick right here. So I'm going to go with Jalen Royals from Utah State, one of my absolute favorite players in this draft. And then, of course, the Chiefs picked just 2 picks later at pick 66, thanks to that trade with the Tennessee Titans this past offseason, L'Jarius Sneed. So now that we've addressed defensive line and wide receiver, 2 of the bigger needs, I would kind of like to look at cornerback, safety, or just defensive back in general. You could also look at offensive line here. People may be screaming at me because I haven't addressed offensive line yet, but man, the Chiefs have invested so much the past couple years. Like, at some point, you have to turn your investments loose. You drafted Wanya Morris with a top 100 pick. You drafted Kingsley in the 2nd round last year. You signed Jawan Taylor to a big contract. Like, you can't just keep trying to fix this over and over again in the draft. I also think the better option would maybe be signing a veteran, because as we've seen, and the Chiefs tried it this year, rookies don't really work out at the tackle position. You can't trot a rookie tackle out there to block for Patrick Mahomes. It just simply does not work. So, I'm a little lukewarm, on taking offensive line here. I'm looking at defensive back. Someone that I have my eye on here, and the draft or Pro Football Network may consider it a reach right here. But Will Lee, the cornerback from Texas A&M, transferred to Texas A&M from Kansas State last offseason, and he was an absolute anchor for the Texas A&M defense. He's a bigger corner, which Steve Spagnuolo obviously likes, and Dave Merritt obviously likes. That's kind of what the Chiefs have targeted. They need a bigger outside corner as well. And the thing with Will Lee specifically, with him being an outside corner, I think he can play outside corner at the next level. You need that, because we saw what the depth looked like when Jalen Watson went down this past season, and it just wasn't good. And you want to have another guy that can line up outside, because then you don't have that drop off and play from Trent McDuffie when he has to fill in on the outside. If you could have someone like Will Lee there, just in case Jalen Watson were to go down again, or just to give him a breather, there's no drop off. You could still have Trent McDuffie in there in the slot and not have to worry about Najee Johnson or Joshua Williams seeing the field. So I really like Will Lee right here. I think safeties maybe a slightly bigger need than corner, but at the end of the day, as long as you're adding depth to that defensive backfield, and I'm not really seeing any safeties worth taking right here. It's not really a great safety class to begin with, but I really like Will Lee, so that's what I'm going to go with here. I know that's typically higher than Brett Veach has drafted cornerbacks, historically speaking, but I think that's the right pick in this scenario. Now, with the Chiefs' next 3rd round pick, again, some people may disagree with me here, but running back is a position you got to look into, and you cannot wait too long, because then you just risk not grabbing a guy that's, or you risk not having someone there on the board that realistically can make your roster, okay? And the Chiefs did this last draft. I was pounding the table for them to draft a running back. I said, well, how are they not drafting a running back? Like, what is going on? They wait till the end of the draft, no running back. They signed Carson Steele as a UDFA. Obviously, Steele has not figured into the regular season rotation at all. And so, they ended up having to sign Kareem Hunt off the street. And while it's worked out, it's really a patch job at the position. You need to invest in running back. Bring in an explosive athlete at the position. You guys know how I feel about Pacheco. I think he lacks RB1 vision. He doesn't really break that many tackles or make that many guys miss. He's only really good when he has a bunch of room in front of him and is able to get that full head of steam. I think he'd be a solid running back 2 still on this team, in this organization, but he's not running back 1 material. You have a chance to grab a true running back 1 in this draft. And a guy that I like, that I'm looking at right now, and I hate to say this as a Missouri fan, but Devin Neal from Kansas. Man, he is just a menace. Dense, compact, well-leveraged runner with a low center of gravity. Kind of like what the Chiefs thought they were getting in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, although Devin Neal's a lot more explosive, in my opinion. I'm going to be really curious to see what his pre-draft process looks like. If he grades out well athletically, this would definitely be a fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. has that ability to get to the second level of the defense and create big plays, as they state here on his profile. Now, they have him as the number 142 player on the board, which means we could probably realistically grab him in the 4th round if I were to trade down. The Chiefs don't have a 4th round pick in this draft currently. But I said I'm not going to do any trades, so just kind of looking at this from a standpoint of let's fill a need where it is with the draft pick that we have. I think the Chiefs need to spend a relatively high pick on a running back. That doesn't mean they have to spend a 1st or 2nd round pick on one. You know, I'm not really that set on drafting a running back, that early. But I think you need to spend a relatively high pick, a 3rd or 4th round pick on a running back. In this case, I like Devin Neal, and I actually think there's a solid chance, especially depending on how his pre-draft process goes, that Devin Neal could be gone a lot sooner than 142, where they have him listed on the big board. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. I really like him. I like the way he plays. This would be the perfect lightning to a Kareem Hunt thunder if the Chiefs bring back Kareem Hunt for another year, which I think they should. I think he's kind of moved into that full-time Jerick McKinnon role. And then, of course, Isaiah Pacheco will still be in the rotation, which gives you a really good situation at running back. And if a guy goes down, you're not panicking. You don't have to sign someone off the street. So I'm going to take Devin Neal, and that is going to wrap up the 4-round Kansas City Chiefs NFL mock draft. So this is what we ended up with: Walter Nolen, Jalen Royals, Will Lee, Devin Neal, and I could not be happier with the way that this mock draft ended up. You just slam dunk, filling needs at a bunch of positions of need with really good, talented players with a lot of upside. I think my favorite pick, though, has to be Jalen Royals at pick 64. I really like him, and I recommend that you guys go and look at his tape. Love the hands, the reliability, the ability to go up and get it, which the Chiefs, have shown that they can use a guy like that in their offense, because they just did that with DeAndre Hopkins. Not that Jalen Royals is DeAndre Hopkins, not comparing him, but he has some contested catch ability and those reliable hands, but he's also explosive enough of an athlete that Andy Reid could scheme him open in this offense. So I want to hear what you guys think of my mock draft down in the comments. Are there any picks I made that you would have gone a different direction? What do you think? Agree with me, disagree with me on any of them? Want to hear from you guys, but that's going to wrap up my way too early 2025 mock draft for the Kansas City Chiefs. So again, leave down in the comments your thoughts. Appreciate hearing from you guys. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And lastly, make sure you check out my work on ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com for more. I will see you all in the next one. And as always, go Chiefs!